It's still just a thunderstorm, not a tornado, right?
It's not a tornado.
Okay.
There's severe watches.
I saw that
Stay
one.
away from the windows, so. Sandy?
Stay away from windows, and Carl asked me to come sit right by the window. What's that about? Well, it's all I can, is it
What is this? Oh, Star.
Okay, here we go. All set? I'd like to call this meeting of the Clay County Commission to order. We will start with our invocation. Acting Administrator, when you are prepared, please proceed.
Thank you, Commissioner. Please join with me in an attitude of prayer. Our Heavenly Father, as this year comes to a close and our buildings are busy with our citizens coming to see the assessor and the collector's departments, we want to recognize and give thanks and ask for your blessings on all of our county staff that are silently working behind the scenes and giving service to this community and our citizens day after day. From our highway department that work to keep the roads safe and passable, our dedicated law enforcement personnel, our courts and our other departments that issue the permits, our deeds, our licenses, to our IT and maintenance departments that make sure our buildings are open, clean, and accessible to serve staff and citizens alike. We are truly humbled to get to work with so many good people. We ask for these blessings in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please call the roll. Here.
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 Approval of the agenda. Is there a motion related to approval of this evening's agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
Motion's been made for the approval of this evening's agenda. Discussion. I had a question. I don't know if the counselor has any insights that he can bring to this, but on our regular agenda, 2021-347 has not appeared on our agenda, on any agendas prior to this, nor has this issue. Is this proper to have it on here without having had it appear on an agenda previously?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Commissioner. So there are a couple ways we can get there on this. There is a matter, 2021-347 is a resolution for ARPA funding related to Liberty Hospital. It was not on last week's agenda, so it typically did not follow the typical two-session approach. It is, however, been requested to be placed on, and 2021 Ordinance 6, which this commission passed on January 28th, does address this issue. So a matter can get put on, maybe placed, onto a business session, which is what tonight is, in certain circumstances, and I'll just read that part of the ordinance. A matter may be considered and approved at a business session without first being considered at a work session, only if the matter is approved unanimously by all voting commissioners. So as I read that, I think the voting commissioners, unless there is a recusal or some other absence, would be the associate commissioners in this case. But I do want to point that out to everyone that there's two ways we could do it. We could not have it on, and then we could amend it to add it, or we can leave it as is. Either way, when we get to it, it does need to be unanimous.
Very good. Yeah, I've got issues with this one. I really, really do. I'm going to make a motion to table 2021-347 to a future meeting. Discussion?
Yes, Commissioner. Thank you. I guess I'd just be curious as to hear the concerns and have a discussion about them. Maybe we can help alleviate them.
Sure. My concerns are a couple. One is, and this is a concern that really goes more to the past, and that is, and I don't I don't characterize it this way. I just say this more as to explain my reaction at an emotional level more than a logical level. But in the past, I have been more than once surprised by things. I was told that I had gotten this in an email. I honestly don't recall. So having not recalled that, I first learned of this about 15, 20 minutes ago. So I have a problem with that. And I think it's a good practice that we go through the process we have, unless there is an overriding reason, an emergency, unless there's some reason for the urgency. I don't see the urgency for this. I understand that a vaccination campaign is important, and I get that. But we also have been considering other entities who want to do these. We have not really discussed, are we going to fund a series of vaccination campaigns? Are we only going to is it going to be an exclusive to Liberty Hospital? I think this bears more discussion, and to bring it up and to pass it, a $100,000 expenditure in the same meeting is, unless there is a true, don't get me wrong, COVID's an emergency. COVID is an urgent and serious matter. But emergency, I'm not sure about. And
Okay.
I think that it's just something that requires thought if we're going to spend $100,000 of public monies.
No, I totally agree, and I think hopefully, having that conversation tonight can help move, that conversation along in terms of determining whether it's the right decision.
Now, I would be willing to amend my motion to table I would go so far as to say I would not mind putting it on for discussion. That way we would discuss it. I just have a great deal of apprehension about doing it with as little notice. Is that, and the thing is, and I want to make this absolutely clear, there is no issue in my mind about the motivation for this. That does not even cross my mind. So don't get me wrong. I don't think anybody is trying to pull a fast one or anything like that. It's just the way, that's just something that really strikes me.
If I could, I'd love to address just the process.
Please, go right ahead.
Briefly, which is that, we have on a number of occasions now passed items, the first day we heard them. And I've been asked to, agree unanimously to do that on a number of occasions on a number of different items. I've always done so. This would be one more example of doing that. In terms of the level of notice we got, this was on the agenda as of Monday. And so it was, done as quickly as I think we could get it done. Part of the reason for doing it now rather than waiting is I agree with you that it's an urgent situation, and we, going into the holiday period here, will be meeting less frequently. And as a result of that, any delay at this point in terms of moving forward with it means an even longer delay than would be typical for us as a body. And so, I think it's an urgent enough matter that I would, really strongly prefer to not wait several extra weeks, which is, we're talking about essentially delaying it by about a month if we don't move it forward this evening. So yeah, in terms of process, it's just, it took up until this point to get it ready to go. I did mention it at the last meeting, and my hope, like you said, not trying to pull a fast one or whatever, it's just the way the calendar has worked out, and by the time everything was ready to go to move on it, I wanted to go ahead and move on it this evening, or at least have the discussion about whether we should with you and Commissioner Thompson, rather than have a significant delay.
I think the other thing that I find a little bit concerning is on an issue that we will take up subsequent, that would be 282. You had, and I agreed with your motion, your actions last week in paring that down to the 2021 year. In the previous to the amending that, it had educational monies in there, but those were taken out at the time. So it feels like it was not an emergency last week, and it is an emergency this week. And I understand it's a fluid situation, but
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we took out money for any educational or promotional activities. What we did was we put money into the encumbrance of an initial installment that the health department will have great latitude with. They could spend the whole $650,000 on promotional efforts to get people to get vaccinated should they so choose. So I think they've got plenty of flexibility there in terms of how they use those funds. Certainly wasn't the intention to decrease that at all. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's very urgent. I think having multiple entities working on this, especially as case rates are increasing pretty dramatically, hospitalizations are increasing dramatically. Obviously, we have a new highly infectious variant. And we have a vaccination rate here in Clay County that's dramatically lower than the national average. And I just feel like having multiple avenues of pursuing getting more people vaccinated, and I think Liberty Hospital is well positioned to do so. And it's just my view that waiting the extra month would be detrimental. And so, like I say, I've always been okay with the times when we've decided to move things forward on the same day. And I'm essentially asking for that same latitude today.
I must say I would have appreciated a phone call from the requesting entity. I would have appreciated that. Like I said, I am willing to withdraw my motion to table and put this on for discussion. If you would like to go forward with it on the regular agenda, then I will let my motion table stand, then we'll go ahead and vote and see where it ends up. I'm willing to accommodate whichever route you want to go. I'm willing to go ahead and go forward with, but letting it stand on the regular agenda is something that I need to at least, I think express the opinion that I'm expressing. So do you have if you would, I guess I'm asking you, would you prefer that I just put it on for, I withdrew that motion and put it on for discussion?
So I appreciate and I appreciate this conversation. I think it's been good. The reason that I'm concerned about doing it just as a discussion item, like I said, is that would mean not moving forward with it. And because of the holiday period and the lack of meetings that we're going to have in the immediate future, moving it to a discussion item does mean, probably a full month delay on moving forward on this. I do share your concerns on process. I agree that it's generally better to hear an item one week and then vote on it the following week. The vast majority of the time we do that. And it's really only been in exigent circumstances that we've, veered from that. But like I said, we have done it a number of times, probably a dozen times at this point. And it's my view that this does rise to the level of importance and urgency that, especially, like I say, with the extra break of the holidays, that I would pretty strongly prefer to at least have if after debate on it or discussion on it, we decide to table it or even vote it down, then that is an option. But I would prefer to have the option to have the vote this evening.
Okay. About the last point I would like to make is, again, this refers to the requesting entity, not the commissioners, and that is $100,000 is a lot of money. You don't ask for it in an email. You ask for it in person. With that, the motion is still on the floor, of course, to table 2021-347. Commissioner Thompson, we haven't given you a chance to speak. Please, if you'd like to address this.
I would, thank you. No, I did see this added to the agenda on Monday, and I did go over the packet and look through it. I am a big promoter of also for process to get it, so we have that time to look over it, have a discussion, and then vote on it. But I do know that they noted in here that they wanted to start the campaign before Christmas and then continue it for 3 to 4 months. But then that got me thinking, I wasn't real sure, I thought we decided a couple weeks ago that moving forward with the ARPA funding, that we were going to do more of a reimbursement? Are we signing checks ahead of time, or are we?
That's an awfully good point. I hadn't thought to address that.
Because I'm very comfortable with keeping it on the agenda, and we can have the conversations, do all that today, and then it'll just go to consent, or back onto regular for voting.
Well, it can't go on, Mr. Counselor, just as a point of our rules, it cannot at this point go on consent. Is that correct?
Not for
Today?
today,
No.
not for today.
Oh,
but
I'm
for-
sorry, I
for the next
misunderstood.
meeting. For our next meeting, when we have it on the 5th, so then we can take it for a vote. So it doesn't then put it back a whole month, it only puts it back 2 weeks, but that allows us to have the conversation. And if there's further questions we need to have, we can have those on the 5th.
Another option might be to put it on for immediate action on that meeting. Would that, Mr. Counselor, be one route that we could take?
It would be essentially the same, yeah, I mean.
It's the same thing, just a different route of getting there.
Yeah, if it's not passed tonight, and you want to pass it on a work session, which would be January 5th, then again, it would follow that typical first read kind of approach, which would be that it would be unanimous, but again, from what I'm hearing, I think that's probably, if that route is chosen, that certainly would seem likely to happen.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did want to make sure we had the parliamentary points straight, but please continue,
So
Commissioner.
I think it's just, but I think the big component is, were we planning on just handing over the money after the vote today? Or are we going to do the reimbursement? Because they could follow through and go through with the beginning of it for the Christmas here, and then we can still follow with our plan, even keep it on the agenda today and talk about it, and then vote on it on the 5th.
So I'm happy to. address
Yeah,
that.
Commissioner,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think in fact, the intention is to do it as a reimbursement, to have the hospital initiate the campaign, pay for it, and just like with all eligible expenses, assuming that it's an eligible expense, which of course this would be, then we would reimburse out of the $100,000 fund. We do have an opportunity to hear from the hospital today in terms of whether or not they would be comfortable initiating that spending with essentially just us saying that we're going to revisit it on January 5th, or whether they would not be comfortable with that. Obviously, I think their comfort level would be increased if we were to pass it this evening, but maybe they would be fine with that. I don't know. So the goal is to get it underway, right? Exactly how we get there is less important. What's important is that the work be done.
I am becoming increasingly less concerned about the comfort level of the requesting entity. I don't see it as, if it's in the packet, perhaps I'm missing it. Is the paperwork from the auditor's office verifying that it is in fact allowable? Is that, I don't see it in here, maybe I'm missing it. Mr. Auditor? Oh,
Yes,
I now have it.
Victor Hilbert, Clay County Auditor. Yes, my office just learned of the item, and we requested that just so we have that standard for every single procedure. And so we have that, and we did our review, and it is, as Commissioner Carpenter mentioned, it does fall under the eligibility guidelines, of course, for vaccine promotion. In fact, let me grab my notebook just a second.
And when, I'm sorry, Mr. Herbert, Mr. Auditor, I'm sure there's a date on here and I'm just not picking up on it. What is our, the date requested, the date requested was the 13th. So that would have been, Monday was the date of the request?
Yes, and then I on Tuesday, came back and noted from the interim final rule, we have, under the COVID, as responding to COVID-19 eligible categories, number 1, expenses related to COVID-19 vaccination programs and sites. And number 9, expenses for communication related to COVID-19 vaccination programs were those specific eligible categories. So that was the review of the application I received on Monday from my assessment.
My concern is not so much that, because I suspect that it is in fact fits in the categories. My thought is, the date, the 13th would have been, what, Monday? I guess the question I have is, was this resolution filed prior to there being the paperwork saying that it was a qualified expense? That concerns me. In my estimation, the paperwork should be in place, then the request should be made for a resolution. I don't want to sit here and try to question whether one was done at 10 o'clock in the morning and the other was done at 2 in the afternoon. But that, I mean, I'm not going to go into that. It just speaks to the haste that is being put onto this, and I find it concerning.
That
So-
I'm not sure. The request for commission action is dated the Monday as well, if that's any.
Right, they were done on the same day.
Yeah.
And like I say, it's not so much that, I don't want to start getting into the weeds and getting nitpicky about it. It just seems to me that if we're going to spend $100,000 of public money, we should have the paperwork in place prior to filing the resolution. Well, with that, I'll go ahead. I realize that the weather is threatening, so let's go ahead and I want to, unless Commissioner Thompson has anything she would like to add, I'm going to go to Commissioner Carpenter, and then I'll go ahead and close, and we'll do the vote, and then we'll move on. But Counselor, you had something.
I'm almost hesitant to bring this up, but I do have one more process observation. There is nothing preventing us from having another meeting between now and January 5th.
That had crossed my mind,
We
too.
could we have a provision for a combined session where something could be brought up. And again, I'm not advocating for that. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that process is part of our ordinances.
Well, it occurred to me that we could stretch the point and have it heard tonight and then vote on it at a special meeting. That would satisfy the concern of not introducing and passing a resolution of this sort at the same meeting. So, yes, that had crossed my mind, but I was a little concerned about trying to schedule a special meeting, as you are, I'm sure, over the holiday season. So with that, Commissioner Thompson, do you have anything you'd like to add before we round this up?
I think I'll just reiterate that I would not be in favor of tabling it, but I think we could definitely have a discussion since we do have a representative here tonight.
Sure.
And I personally would prefer to vote on it at another meeting, even if it were set as a special meeting, and maybe we can get to that as we get to the discussion and.
Let me ask you this, would you be comfortable if I withdrew this motion and made a motion to put it on for discussion tonight, and then we took it up at a subsequent meeting? Is that what you were just referring to, or did I?
I was thinking just keep it on the agenda. It's here, we have the paperwork, we can have a discussion about it, hear from our representative that is here to speak on it, and then we can vote on it on the next meeting, either on the 5th, or if we need to call a special meeting, depending on what new information comes to us tonight. That would be my 2 cents to it.
Mr. Counselor, is that something that you would be okay with?
Yeah, I would be.
Parliamentarily?
I mean, it's on the agenda. Again, all I really care about is when it comes up for vote, that everybody understands that there are somewhat special rules for it because it wasn't on last week. So if you want to keep it on, that's fine. I think the current motion is to table it, which would
Correct.
remove it from this agenda.
Correct. With that, Commissioner Carpenter, I want to give you an opportunity to say anything you'd like to say on the matter before we go to a vote.
No, I think it's, like I say, as long as we get the outcome of getting more people vaccinated and getting more awareness out there and more work being put into that effort, that's the result I care about. So I look forward to the discussion here this evening.
Okay. I think I pretty much expressed the opinions that I had on this matter, so I will close, and as the counselor pointed out, that this vote, like the votes we take, will be among the associate commissioners unless there is a tie vote, at which point I would be voting.
That's right.
So with that understanding, I didn't want anybody to think that this was somehow a special circumstance. Therefore, I close. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson?
No?
Commissioner Carpenter?
No.
The motion to table fails. That brings us back to the underlying motion for the approval of tonight's agenda. Is there any more discussion on tonight's agenda? Oh, there we are. Seeing none, Commissioner Thompson, I believe that was your motion, so you are recognized to close.
I close?
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
That brings us to meeting schedule. Acting Administrator?
Yes, Commissioner. Our next work session is scheduled for January the 5th, but I would like to point out the county's holiday schedule coming up for any of our citizens. The county offices will be closed on Friday, December the 24th, and again on Friday, December the 31st. And tomorrow, from 11:30 to 1, we are closing for just a brief period to allow the staff to gather for a little holiday celebration, with the exception of the Recorder of Deeds. So access to the building will still be open on the east entrance to access the Recorder of Deeds. It's right inside the door.
Thank you very much. That brings us to honorary resolutions. There are none listed this evening.
Commissioner, I apologize.
Oh, sure.
The auditor just brought something to my attention that I feel like I need to bring to the commission's attention.
Okay.
That I was not aware of. The auditor tells me, if you look to the second page of your agenda, the very top item is 2021 Ordinance 49. It is my understanding just now that that also was not on our agenda last week. And so I guess I want to give everyone the opportunity to know that. So I guess my recommendation is we pass the agenda, we can take it up, there will be separate rules for it as well, but if anybody wants to reconsider their vote on the agenda to have a discussion about that, that could happen as well.
At this point, unless somebody would like to bring it, okay, so to bring that up, we would need to go back and open up the agenda again, which would just,
Somebody would have to reconsider.
someone who
Somebody in the
reconsider would be
affirmative
from,
could reconsider.
just for what it's worth, I don't really have much of a desire to repeat the exercise we just went through. It appears to be innocuous, so
If we leave it on, I'm happy that we'll address it with those special rules as well when we come
I
to it.
think that would be, do I have consensus from the commission to work it that way on ordinance 49? Just go ahead and leave it on the agenda, and then when it comes up, we will address it in that way.
Yes.
Are you okay with that, John? Commissioner Carpenter, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. Very well, then we will continue forward. Thank you for pointing that out. I didn't realize. Okay. There are no discussion items. Public hearings, there are no public hearings scheduled. That brings us to our consent agenda. Is there a motion related to this evening's consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
A motion has been made for the approval of the consent agenda. Discussion? Seeing none, you'll recognize to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
That brings us to our regular agenda. First on the agenda is 2021-347. Acting Administrator.
Yes, Commissioner. 2021-347 is bringing us back to our discussion item of approved ARPA funding requests from the Liberty Hospital to partner with Hy-Vee for vaccination campaign.
Very well. And I believe this would be Commissioner Carpenter's issue, so if you would like to bring it, if you'd like to go ahead and present on that, we will go forward with it.
Okay, do we need a motion to approve or not?
Generally, what we do is, and we can do it either way. I usually like to have the issue presented, and then once everybody has it, then a commissioner would be able to
I see.
do. So either way you'd care to proceed is fine.
Okay. So yes, this is the item that we have discussed so far this evening. The idea, as has been discussed, is to use some of our COVID funds to engage in essentially an public awareness campaign around vaccinations to get our vaccination rate here in Clay County up as we go into this winter season, and there's every indicator that we're going to be seeing a pretty significant spike in terms of COVID infections and hospitalizations as well, and of course, tragically as well, loss of life, that we put some more effort into this. And so the idea is, in this situation, to engage the public via things like billboards, paid social media advertising to target folks who live here in Clay County about the importance and value of getting vaccinated. And I, want to just, I think we're going to hear, we got a couple folks, I think, here representing the hospital. I want to give my sincere thanks to them, to both of them for their help with this. I went to them with this, and they very graciously worked with me to bring this forward this evening. And I'm very grateful to them for that, and look forward to hearing from them.
Very well. Would you like to go ahead and make your motion?
I move that we approve 2021-347.
Motion's been made for the approval of 2021-347. Discussion. Commissioner Thompson, do you have any questions before we hear from the requesting entity?
I will just say, I do have a couple questions when it's time about the actual, some of the campaign and what that looks like. I will say I'm not necessarily convinced that we need to vote on this tonight. I would be open to doing a special session here in the next 2 weeks if we need to get together, or if this is something that we could do on the 5th.
So right now, just as a technical matter, and correct me, Mr. Counselor, if I'm wrong, motion on the floor at this moment is for the passage, for the approval, I should say, of 2021-347.
That is correct. That is the motion.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, I wanted to get some clarity, so voting on it would in fact put it in, be the approval.
Yes,
Okay.
as it stands right now, the vote is going to be up or down on the passing it as is.
Understood, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that it was clear, because we're on a little bit of a, we're a little bit more into the weeds parliamentarily wise than we generally get, so, very well. Please continue, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to make sure we had clarity on the technical points.
Yeah, no, I think it's just more of if we could put this on for a meeting, if we needed to move forward, what did that look like? And but it sounds like we have to vote yes or no on it today.
That was a question to you, Mr.
That's just
Counselor.
the current motion. You can also move to amend it. You could reach consensus on withdrawing it with some alternate approach to it. I mean, you could vote it down and make your own motion, which would be to put it wherever you want to put it. Yeah.
Might I make the recommendation that however we dispose of this particular issue tonight, as certainly as a courtesy to our guests, that we not make any disposition of it at this moment until the hospital has had a chance to present their information, and also to give Commissioner Carpenter the chance to make his case as well. So I think what I would like to do, what I would recommend is we not take action on this until we've heard from the witnesses, if that sounds reasonable to everybody.
No, I'm fine with that.
Do you have anything to add, Commissioner, before we go to the witnesses?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. My understanding is the requesting entity would be Liberty Hospital, and there is a person here who would like to speak on their behalf.
Thank you. I'm David Fees, the hospital.
Oh, yeah, you need to. There you go. Thank you.
I'm David Fees, the hospital CEO, Liberty Hospital. And I, first of all, apologize for the miscommunication. That certainly wasn't my intent to miscommunicate, so I apologize, Commissioner Nolte. So I recognize your request and won't happen again. But I think the thing I just want to emphasize is we are in our third wave. We are seeing significant hospital admissions due to COVID. That's why I felt like it was important that we try to address this as quickly as we can, because we do need to get people vaccinated or their booster. And just trying to work with Clay County, get our citizens vaccinated, not have them in our hospital. That's our focus, truly. And we were just trying to be a good partner to make sure that we got that message out, that we do need to get our vaccination rates up in Clay County and keep as many people out of the hospital as possible, because we are having, as well as other hospitals, are having a difficult time caring for not only the COVID patient, but also those patients that are suffering other illnesses, and keeping our emergency rooms open is critical. So this is just a component of trying to do that. The proposal is to have the county reimburse us for our expenses that, as we incurred. Talked about coming up with a number. It's kind of a budgeted number, but it really would be a combination of billboards in Clay County, and also we would target with social media those residents who live in Clay County. And you can target with social media those people living in the county, reminding them, encouraging them to get a vaccination or a booster vaccination. And our goal too is that the design of this is to elicit the emotion of how important it is for you and your family keeping safe. You know, we did get down to 7 hospital admissions for COVID about 10 weeks ago. And after the Halloween, then the Thanksgiving holidays, we saw those numbers get back to the 40s. So that's comparable to what we experienced last year. And again, I think we'll see a pretty significant spike after the Christmas holidays. So anything we can do to keep people safe, that's all we're trying to do. Recognizing the timing, I do think we'll see continued hospitalizations. We are seeing flu now too, so we are having the combination. And the new variant, Omicron, is out there too. So we don't know what the significance of that is from truly at this point hospitalizations, but we know some of the vaccines work well, but we don't have the facts yet. But again, we're just trying to educate the public. Felt like this would be a good opportunity to work with Clay County to try to get people to get their vaccinations. So that really is our objective.
I would very much like to work with other entities also in getting the word out. I think it's a noble goal, and I think it's what we need to be doing. I'll read the second sentence under issue on the request for commission action. The thought is to develop an ad campaign targeted to Clay County residents using billboards, social media, possibly postcards. Do we have any kind of breakdown on how you plan to spend the money? I mean, one of the things that we've asked for from other requesting entities was to give us some idea of what monies were going into which categories. And I understand that a media mix is something to, is something that it kind of is done as you go along and as you see the effectiveness. But is there a plan?
There will be a plan.
There will be a plan.
Yes.
Be good to see the plan. I also see it said, as I said before, possibly postcards. We really don't quite know what we're up to, do we?
Well, I think it really gets back to looking at the cost and what's allocated or budgeted for the initiative. And again, getting your feedback and inputs is important in coming to that together. But that's certainly something we could work at. If you would look at encumbering the dollars and us submitting a budget, I'm certainly, that's something we would certainly work at doing. And engaging, honestly, you would have to get a media buy out there, and they would work it with you to determine how you best utilize those dollars, whether it be on billboards and a lot of times that becomes on what's available, where it's located. And also social media is very inexpensive. As you know, postcards with postage and that does become fairly expensive, and how you would target the county would be the other thing we'd have to work through, because certainly you could spend well in excess of the dollars budgeted if you aren't careful.
No, I do understand. Having spent over 40 years in advertising, I do understand. Further discussion. Commissioner Thompson, do you have any questions of the requester?
I do, thank you. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
I was just kind of curious, because I'm a big promoter of like getting information out, getting our community safe, and get anyone who needs the vaccination, get them what they need. Do we have any statistics on how successful the campaigns are to get new people in who have not been vaccinated? Because I will say, I've been seeing some commercials from surrounding, hospitals and communities and stuff. So I just didn't know, do we know how, do you think there's going to be a big uptick or any number?
Well, the unvaccinated population, typically, if you're not probably at this point going to see a significant change, it really would be those people. Now, hopefully you'll get some, but you will get, in particular, those people getting their third booster or third shot. And that's the group that, too, we need to, and we're even seeing it in our employee population, getting that third booster, we do need to encourage people to get, and that's what we're trying to make sure that third booster. As far as statistics on the third booster, I don't have those.
Okay. And I will say, to Commissioner Nolte's point, I would like to see just a little bit of a breakdown of a plan. I think that would be helpful. I know a lot of other entities that come in and ask for the ARPA money give us just a little bit of an idea. And I think this is a noble cause, and we would love to be able to give you the money to move forward on this and get it out in their community. Is it ruined if we vote on this on January the 5th? Is for some reason it would not happen, everything falls apart, and the word doesn't get spread?
I think timing's everything. Sometimes, from the standpoint, it is an issue. That's why I wanted to try to get this started as quickly as possible. If I would anticipate, if we wait till early January, it would probably take 2 to 3 weeks to get things rolling from a standpoint of actually hitting billboards and getting the buy and getting those things put in place. Now, social media will go much quicker.
Okay. So,
And I would be willing to, again, I'm just trying to make sure that we try to get our vaccination rates up. I'm prepared to just move forward with the social media. That's very inexpensive, and if you want to take some additional time to think about it, and we can put together some information, but we do feel it's important, and we do what we practically can to get the vaccination rates up in our county and make sure that our citizens are safe, but also our workforce, because you are seeing more and more workforce off because of a breakthrough vaccinations, and so that, as we know, the effectiveness of the initial vaccines are waning at this point, so it is important that we try to do what we can to move this forward.
no, I understand. So, because this would be a reimbursement, so you guys
Yes.
couldn't just move forward and then come back and visit us on the 5th?
I would do the social media.
Okay.
I probably would not buy billboards
Probably
and
wouldn't go through all
and do the mailers, but that's something that the commissioners thinks would be also helpful. I'm willing to do what we can to promote, because it is a significant issue for us right now. I apologize for the communication, but we've been very, very busy.
No, I understand. I want to make sure that we can do everything that we can to help get the word out, but I personally don't like voting on things the first time it just shows up in front of me. So, and I try not to do that too often. So I'll give it back to you, but thank you.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you for being here. And
Myron,
yeah, I think.
Myron, did you have anything to say?
Excuse me, we will, if another person wants to testify, they will. I'd just like to remind the witness that I'm running the meeting. Thank you. Commissioner Carpenter, you may proceed.
I just want to thank you for being here. Again, what you said about trying to be a good community partner here in Clay County, I think is exactly what you're doing, and very grateful to it on a very important cause. And just want to thank you for your work on this.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
One occurred to me. How did we arrive at the rather round figure of $100,000? Because usually, as I think both myself and Commissioner Thompson mentioned, with a plan that generates, if you're talking about, if I were running an ad campaign and I decide I wanted 10 billboards, I wanted to do a mailing, those all get attached a dollar value, and that allows us to generate a budget how did you come up with the $100,000 figure?
We worked with our ad agencies, Dobies, to begin to develop kind of a framework to work within, although we did not put detailed numbers to each one of those categories at this point.
Okay. Thank you. If there are no other questions of this particular witness, is there anyone else who would care to speak on this matter? Please come forward. And I want to make sure that as we hear people speak, please make sure the green light is on the microphone. Identify yourself and speak clearly because, and tell us your name because we have audio recordings as well so that people can be identified.
Fantastic. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you for, my name is Myron Neth, and I'm representing the Liberty Hospital Board of Trustees. Just thank you for indulging on this. Thank you for just considering it. I think the biggest thing for us and other health organizations is the fact that, healthcare has been hit hard. I mean, bottom line. I mean, that's doesn't matter what organization it is. And the funding aspect of things is that there are things we can do to better what we do. Whether that be just purely as a hospital or as a vaccination thing or whatever. There's ways to go about things. There's ways to do things. Some will work, some won't work, kind of a thing. Some of us kind of shot in the dark. We know that kind of a thing. So I think that where this discussion can go from here is, hey, let's look at what might be most effective, kind of a thing. I think the biggest thing with our goal is we just want to make sure people know that vaccinations are available. I mean, that's really it. I mean, it's there. I mean, we're not, I mean, I'm not on a mission to shove it down everybody's throat, but I think it's a good thing, and we want to make sure it's available. And so we as a hospital organization want to make sure that we have the best availability possible to go for people to get vaccinated if they want, kind of a thing. And so I think that's the biggest thing we want, and we want to be able to use the funds effectively and most efficiently and most responsibly to go and do what's right for the county. I think it's the main thing. So like I appreciate just for considering it. I appreciate, hey, I understand pushback, fantastic, great. We'll go from here. We'll move forward. We'll get what we feel is maybe more effective. Talk to you all a little more closely to see what you're thinking and so forth. But just thank you. Thank you for just considering it and within the scope of all that you're doing and with all the funds that are available. Thank you.
Are there any questions of this witness, Commissioner Carpenter?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Thompson?
No, thank you.
I think one of the things, in spite of the fact that we've had obviously some debate on methodology, on timing, and a lot of other things, I think that I speak on behalf of the entire commission. Please correct me if I'm wrong. That we do want to make sure that people are aware and educated and make the best possible decisions when it comes to not just COVID-19 generally, but certainly when it comes to vaccinations and boosters in particular. So certainly we appreciate your time, the time of both witnesses coming here this evening.
Great. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would care to speak on this issue before we go forward? Very well. Is there any further comment or discussion from the commission? Well, let me go to Commissioner Thompson first because it's Commissioner Carpenter's motion.
No further. No, thank you.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, then I will recognize Commissioner Carpenter to close on the motion for the approval of 2021-347. Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. So just to briefly touch on the process again and communication and all that, I appreciate the discussion here this evening. I think, part of what happened is we received sort of an email with the plan on Saturday and then got it added first thing Monday. Our administrators out this week, and communication didn't get passed along to you. And as the public may or may not know, with the sunshine rules being what they are, we commissioners are not permitted to just call each other and discuss these things, which obviously, as we know, adds a whole extra layer of making these kind of things difficult. I think what would have been optimal is that when the email came in Saturday and then when we got it added first thing Monday, that somebody might have reached out to you to make sure that it was on your radar. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But that being said, as I mentioned earlier, we have on a number of occasions debated and passed things the same day. In fact, I think time that it's been proposed that we do so. 100% of the time we've done so. That being said, it sounds like there's, on this one, not the appetite to do so. So, following the recommendation of council, I'd like to make a new motion and propose that we move it to the next work session. There's been discussion about maybe being able to fast track it at that point, be able to, take it up and pass it at the work session rather than waiting the additional week beyond that. So at this point, Mr. Counselor, that's the motion I'd like to make.
So the motion is to withdraw the original motion and make a substitute motion to place this on the January 5th, 2022 work session, but with the intent that there might be a request to actually pass it on that day.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. As there is a new motion on the floor, I will reopen discussion just briefly, but I would remind us all that we are almost an hour into this meeting and the weather is rather threatening. So I would just like to say that I appreciate the flexibility of Commissioner Carpenter, and I've said it before, but given our recent history, I want to say that I bear no animosity, no ill will at all to the fact that we can disagree, and I think this is great that we can have these discussions and still go forward in a constructive way. So I absolutely appreciate that the gentleman is extending himself to that degree, and I deeply appreciate your consideration of the entire issue. So thank you very much. Commissioner Thompson, did you have any comments on the motion made by Commissioner Carpenter?
No, I think this works just fine. I was actually gonna propose us doing a special session next week, but this works as well. But yeah, no, I just want to make sure they get the resources that they need to keep our community safe. So.
Well, if the commission is open to doing that, then I'm also open to doing that. So I appreciate the extension of that offer. I do feel that this is an issue that rises to the level of urgency, that if it's the will of the commission to come in and do this next week, consider me 100% supportive. And in fact, if council is amenable to me withdrawing the motion and making a new motion again, I would.
What might be a little bit cleaner way? What might be a cleaner way to do this would be if Commissioner Thompson would like to make a motion amending Commissioner Carpenter's motion, saying, or if there is or he could, or if or sooner if we have a special session. I mean, is that what's the cleanest way parliamentarily?
Could I maybe just do a quick inquiry of the commission on this? Is there anything you would want as far as information from the applicant before we did a special session? I'd hate to have a special session and the applicant not have what you wanted. So because I heard something kind of intimating that maybe there was some more information being requested. If there is, it would probably be helpful to know what that is, and then give the applicant the opportunity to see if that's doable for next week, as a thought on process.
Oh, that is a good point. Commissioner Thompson, you had, I think we had similar thoughts, but please go ahead and.
Oh, I was just thinking just kind of a generalized, just kind of a breakdown in the cost, like what would that money go to? Kind of divvied up a little bit, just to give us kind of an idea, but.
Within a week, you think that's feasible? Okay.
Okay.
And keeping in mind, we can do a special session on 24 hours notice.
Correct.
So we could receive it. If we receive it in a timely way, we could then work with everybody's schedule to do it, and move it, and maybe keep with your original motion, which would put it on the 5th, with the understanding that if we get information prior to then, within 24 hours, if everybody's schedule works, we can pull it up sooner. And that might be the most flexible way, given the holidays and everybody's various schedules.
I like that idea of doing it as quickly as possible, should we have the information required.
I'll make that motion, what Kevin said. I'll make that, I'll do that. I'll do that
Okay,
one.
so do we want, was I correct that she's making an amendment to Commissioner Carpenter's?
What I just suggested, I think he's withdrawn his motion and made a motion to put it on January 5th. I think that works, and then staff now has the understanding that if information is received before then, and we can work a meeting with everybody's schedule, we'll knock it out, we'll get a meeting set.
So we really don't need any further action. We can adopt Commissioner Carpenter's motion
Yes.
and still be
And
able
give
to
direction to
accommodate
staff.
that.
Yes.
No, and as far as extra information that we may be getting, I feel confident that the applicant will be in touch with the commissioners and ready to supply whatever information that we would be in need of to make a decision.
And again, just so, timing is really tricky with this. Does anybody know when Mr. Salisbury is coming back?
I don't know if he's going to be back Friday, but he is expected to be back
He'll
Monday.
be back Monday? Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, recognize Commissioner Carpenter to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. That brings us to item 2021-333. Acting Administrator.
2021-333 is to approve sole source vendor Simpro for treasury management, and our treasurer Bob Nance is here to address.
Please proceed.
Yes, Commissioners, Bob Nance, County Treasurer. And what I wanted to share was that Simpro, we want them to continue to be a sole source provider. This is the 13th year, but they handle our software for recording of all investments, including redemptions, quarterly reports, records. They keep track of terms, different terms of our investments. But most importantly, it helps us with accurate allocation of that interest.
Very good. Are there any questions of the treasurer on this item? Is there a motion related to 2021-333?
I'll make a motion to approve 2021-333.
Motion been made for the approval of 2021-333. Discussion, Commissioner Carpenter?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone from the public who would care to make a comment? Seeing none, Commissioner Thompson, you're recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Brings us to 2021-282.
2021-282 is to approve ARPA funds to our Clay County Public Health Center. This is brought to us by the Auditor. We do have the Clay County Health Director here as well, and he said he would be available for comments if things were not answered properly or sufficiently by the Auditor. Victor Hilbert.
Please proceed.
Yes, Commissioners, Victor Hilbert, Clay County Auditor. Just a reminder, with Resolution 2021-282, again, we had applications some time ago from the Health Center requesting rescue plan monies over a course of years. Commission recently took that back up after tabling the item and agreed upon reimbursing those 2021 expenditures they originally outlined. We've already reviewed their request as an eligible expenditure under the rescue plan's interim final rule. So with that, I'll bring up the Health Center Director unless you have any questions of me.
Are there any questions for the auditor? Seeing none. Yes, Mr. Zabarak, if you'd care to make any comments?
Good evening, Gary Zabarak, Director of Public Health for Clay County Public Health Center. And I guess this would be premature, but the one thing I wanted to say was thank you to the Commission for reviewing this and revisiting it. I say that's premature because you still have to vote on it. I recognize that. But thank you for that. We greatly appreciate it. And we also plan to apply for 2022 funds, and we are also appreciative of the reimbursement for expenditures incurred. We would be, it would work much better for us as an applicant to not wait until December of 2022 to be reimbursed for the entire year. It would be preferred to be on a shorter scale, whether that's quarterly or whatever. But still, the expenses being incurred first is something that is manageable for us on a shorter term basis. It would be much more difficult And considering our board meeting tomorrow night is to adopt our 2022 budget, so it would be more manageable for us that way. So that's really all I came up here for, was to appreciate the commission's revisiting this, and thank you in advance, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of the director? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. And, I'd just like to say I appreciate the actions of Commissioner Carpenter on 282. I think he took a very responsible approach to this issue. With that, any discussion from the public? Seeing none. Is there I'm sorry, there's not a motion on the floor yet. Is there a motion for 2021-282?
I move that we approve 2021-282.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2021-282. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes?
That brings us to 2021 Ordinance 49. Please, Deputy Administrator.
2021 Ordinance 49 is to reappropriate and revise the current adopted budget, and this comes from our Auditor's Department.
Yes,
Please.
Commissioners, Victor Hilbert, Clay County Auditor. 2021 Ordinance 49, as noted by Counselor, is an item we did not hear at the work session, and I am requesting to add it. The reason being, I had thought this was going to be the last meeting of the year, so certainly if Commission wants to move this to the 22nd, you're welcome to do so. But it's not, as Commissioner Nolte mentioned, it's not a very substantive issue. Essentially, as you recall, we had previously done a lot of budget adjustments at the end of the year to budget all of our certificates of participation, all of our bond funds, as well as end-of-year budget items. This is along the same lines as that. We noticed two more items that we just could not have been aware of. The first is the Fund 506, which is the Sheriff Emergency Fugitive Apprehension Fund. This is a sheriff discretionary fund. Essentially, it has its own bank account and custodian of the treasurer, and sheriff deputies are able to use these funds directly to go apprehend fugitives and bring them back for the state of Missouri. We're reimbursed by the state. So you can't really predict the activity in that fund, and we've just had unexpected historic levels of spending and reimbursement correspondingly in that fund, and as a result, we're just essentially truing that up, recognizing that revenue so that we don't have an over-budget violation on our financial statements. So currently, we are at that place because this particular fund is a discretionary fund that doesn't get a warrant signed by the commission. Sheriff's office just uses it directly. So that's really the purpose for the Fund 506, and that's why I think it is not necessarily an emergency of nature, but to avoid a financial statement audit finding. That's the importance of it. And then the second item there is the Tax Collection Software Fund 305. It's within budget and it won't go over budget. It is one that needs a PO, so there are good controls in place for that. But there will be accrual accounting after the end of the year, so we just want to make sure there's enough budget again for our financial statements as recommended by our external auditors. And so we're just recognizing revenue again above what was anticipated and putting it into the expenditure account so that our fund will be in balance. So that's essentially it. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the auditor on 2021 Ordinance 49? Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on 2021 Ordinance 49? Seeing none, is there a motion related to that issue?
I'll make a motion to approve 2021 Ordinance 49.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2021 Ordinance 49. Discussion?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, first of all, thank you to the auditor for your work on this. Does sound like an important thing to move forward before the end of the year. So, as I've, mentioned at the meeting thus far, I don't know, I haven't kept track of the number of times we've done this. I think it's north of a dozen at this point. And every time I've been asked to hear something and vote on something on the same day, I have agreed to do so. Sounds like there's some concern about doing that as a practice, and if we're going to consider having a special meeting next week on the other item, at this point, I think it makes more sense to go ahead and have some consistency around that as if we're going to declare that a best practice that needs to be followed consistently. So at this point, I'm certainly open to including this on that meeting, but I'm not comfortable voting yes on it this evening.
So the motion on the floor right now is for passage of 2021 Ordinance 49. Would Commissioner Carpenter like to make another motion related to that, or an amendment, or would you like to go forward? Because,
Sure.
would Commissioner Thompson like to do something differently? I mean, I want to open it up so we can go ahead and move forward.
No, I was a little conflicted on this, so I'm very comfortable with withdrawing my motion, and then we can put this on for the January 5th meeting, or if the special session comes sooner.
Okay.
Okay, very well. So that would appear, so the motion would be that 2021 Ordinance 49 would appear on the consent agenda for our meeting scheduled for January the 5th, right?
January 5th, 2 o'clock, yeah.
Mr. Auditor seems to be coming to the podium. Let's hear what his thoughts are.
Yes, Victor Hilbert, Clay County Auditor. So we have to book this entry before the end of the year, before 12/31. So I would advise, and I don't know what you're going to discuss on the next meeting, just frankly, if this goes to the 22nd, you're welcome to do that. The reason we missed this is because the deadline had passed for the agenda to even be heard on the, what was the work session, I guess, on the 8th. So the deadline had already passed when this December bookkeeping happened. So it's a little bit of a different scenario, but we do need this before the end of 21.
I would just make the observation that as far as voting on items that were introduced the same evening or the same meeting, one of the things that makes this, in my mind, somewhat of a different story is this is internal to the county, so we're not dealing with an outside entity. And secondarily, there seems to be, while not necessarily, there seems to be a fiscal reason to have this done prior to the January 5th meeting. I would just make that observation, and certainly I'd be willing to go forward with whatever the will of the commission is. So the motion on the floor right now would be to put it to January 5th.
It's basically the identical motion that we had earlier, which
It is.
the way I heard it is, move it to January 5th with direction to staff to move it to an earlier special session, should there be one.
And that was what I was looking for, was that to be explicitly said in the meeting so that staff felt that they had the information they needed to go forward. So the motion essentially would say that it would be put on for consent on the January 5th meeting. However, it could be, if we have a subsequent meeting, it would still be on the consent agenda. So say we had a meeting for, I don't know, say December 28th. It could appear on consent on that agenda. Is that correct? Am I interpreting it correctly?
Yes, except it wouldn't be consent, it would just be, just an item.
It wouldn't really matter because
It's going to be taken up separately, voted separately.
exactly. So the whole consent thing is a moot point to a large degree on that. Okay. With that understanding then, okay. So you've withdrawn your original motion. You've made the motion just outlined. Discussion, Commissioner Carpenter.
I support the motion.
Very good. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner
No.
Thompson, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Yes?
Yes.
That brings us to 2021-323.
2021-323
Yes.
is to approve and amend a memorandum of understanding for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program with the Kearney Enrichment Council. And Victor Herbert, our auditor, is here to address.
Please proceed.
Yes, Victor Hilbert, Clay County Auditor. So Resolution 2021-323, as we heard last week, was essentially the request from one of our case management agencies for our Emergency Rental Assistance Program received from the federal government by virtue of our population to increase their administrative allocation for the 2.0 program from, again, $35,000 to $52,500, an increase of $17,500. There's still some admin budget left for that, around $15,000, which again is the 15% admin bucket in the ERAP 2.0 program.
Okay. Are there any questions of the auditor on 323?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Is there a motion related to 2021-323?
I move that we approve 2021-323.
Motion has been made for approval of 2021-323. Discussion? Commissioner Thompson?
No, thank you.
Any comment from the public? Seeing none, Commissioner Carpenter, you're recognized to close.
Close.
Please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
That brings us to 2021-341.
2021-341 approves ARPA funding request for the Kearney Senior Center for HVAC system improvements. This also comes from our auditor, Victor Hilbert.
Please proceed.
Yes, Victor Hilbert, Clay County Auditor. Again, Resolution 2021-341, we heard last week, was a American Rescue Plan request from Kearney Senior Center, as well as the City of Kearney in cooperation with them and their Kearney Community Foundation. We confirmed with the city that they've obligated all of their rescue plan money. The request is for $12,000 for a new filtration HVAC unit, which we deemed as assistance to nonprofits, and for that filtration component is eligible under the rescue plan's interim final rule. So they will present us those invoices so that we pay exactly at cost, not to exceed $12,000. And that's it.
Very well. Are there any questions of the auditor?
No, thank you.
Seeing none, is there a motion related to 2021-341?
I'll make a motion to approve 2021 ordinance, 2021-341. I was done.
Motion's been made for the approval of 2021-341. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Brings us to 2021 Ordinance 46.
2021 Ordinance 46 is to approve a state block grant agreement between Missouri Highway Transportation and for a runway improvements. This comes to us from our Airport Division. Deputy County Administrator Carl Walters is here to address.
Please proceed.
Good evening, Commission. Carl Walters, Deputy Director of Administrations for Clay County. I bring to you a state block grant for the amount of $245,645 for the design criteria on the rehabilitation of the runway. It states that $32,975 of it will be paid at 100%. The remaining $212,670 at 90-10 match, which states that the county would not exceed $23,630 in the matching funds, which is a benefit to us for the runway of what we'll pay out of that $4 million on that runway. So I think it's a great thing to have.
Very good. Are there any questions of the Deputy Administrator?
No, thank you.
Very well. Is there a motion related to 2021 Ordinance 46?
I move that we approve 2021 Ordinance 46.
Motion's been made for the approval of 2021 Ordinance 46. Discussion? Comments from the public? Seeing none. Commissioner Carpenter, you're recognized to close.
Close.
Please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
That brings us to 2021-327.
2021-327 is to approve a memorandum of understanding between the Clay County Sheriff's Department and the Tri-County Mental Health Center. Captain Amy Agadarian of the Sheriff's Department is here to address.
Please proceed.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is a request to approve a memorandum of understanding between the Sheriff's Office and Tri-County Mental Health for the services of a social worker to be embedded in the Sheriff's Office to assist with CIT crisis calls out in the community, and also to provide resources to the Sheriff's Office personnel.
Are there any questions of the witness?
No, thank you.
Seeing none, is there a motion related to 2021-327?
I'll make a motion to approve 2021-327.
Motion's been made for the approval of 2021-327. Discussion? Seeing none, you're recognized to close.
Close.
Please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
The next on the agenda are items that are bundled, and I'll recite the number and then tell me if I get it correct. I hope I get a gold star. 2021-328, 329, 330, 331, 334, 311, 335, 312, 337, and 338 are all companion issues. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner. These are all ARPA fund requests, and I will let Captain Amy Agadarian go through these individually to address any questions.
Thank you very much. Please
Captain
proceed.
Amy Agdarian, Clay County Sheriff's Office, and I realize I forgot to introduce myself last time, but that was me before, and I'm still here. This is a request for the allocation of ARPA funding for several projects within the Sheriff's Office. Included in this are two requests for sole source vendor status that are companion items to two of the requests. Last week, I went through each individual item in some detail with a dollar amount assigned to it. And I don't have any new information tonight, but what I would like to do is offer to address any questions or concerns that the commission has for each of these items.
Does anybody have any items listed on the grouping that they would like to inquire of individually?
I do not, thank you.
No, thank you.
Very well.
Okay. I would like to reiterate that all of these items have been certified for the ARPA requirements by the auditor and by the county administrator.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you pointed that out. Is there a motion related to this grouping of items?
I move that we approve the items as published.
Motion's been made for the approval of the bundled items that we have just discussed. Discussion? Commissioner Thompson, do you have anything?
I don't, thank you.
Comments from the public? Seeing none. Commissioner Carpenter, you're recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes?
Thank you, Commission.
That brings us to 2021-336.
Commissioner, 2021-336 approves an agreement between Clay County and the medical examiner for forensic services, and this is brought to us by Commission and our counsel, who is currently out of the room.
I tell you what, then, let's. Do we want to skip up to the next one then and give the counselor time to
I would
rejoin us?
suggest we do that.
Very well. If it's okay with the commission to go ahead and move forward, slightly out of order, let's move on to 2021-332.
2021-332 is to appoint members to the Airport Advisory Board. We have currently one name that was presented last week. I have a Todd Mitten, and this is also brought by the commission.
Yes, that is one that I had brought forward. We, at the time, the bio was not in the packet. It was distributed shortly thereafter. In accordance with our Constitution, I would like to put forward the nomination of Todd Mitten to fill the slot, one of the slots on the Aviation Board. I think commissioners have had a chance to look through his resume. He is, I think, highly qualified. His service with the Air National Guard, certainly. His military service speaks well. So he has a lot of experience both in the military and in the aviation part of it. In my discussions with him, he very much sees the airport as an asset that we need to continue to take advantage of and to expand both for the use and enjoyment of the public and also for the economic development advantages that it could render to the county. So with that, I would like to make a motion for the approval of 2021-332 with the name Todd Mitten inserted in one of the lines. There's another individual who's put in an application, but I had not had time to interview that individual before we went forward. So there will be another name forthcoming, as well as I will be reviewing any other applications that come in between now and that time. But at the moment, would make the nomination to fill one of those slots with Todd Mitten. Discussion, any questions or?
Thank you.
Okay, any comments from the public? Seeing none, please call the roll.
I don't think we made made a motion on this. Oh, Jerry did.
I
I'm
did,
sorry. Sorry,
yes.
Commissioner Nolte, sorry. Clearly, it's been a very long night, yes.
Yes.
That brings us to 21-346. Deputy Administrator, sorry about that.
2021-346 is to appoint our Clay County Auditor, Victor Hilbert, to the Mid-America Regional Council Board of Directors. This is a commission item.
Once again, it is one of my items. We have some spots on the MARC board that we need to be filling, and I thought it was good to bring Auditor Hilbert forward on that. There are complications to having two commission members, especially as we are a three-member body at the moment. Auditor Hilbert also brings to the table I think a very substantial knowledge of the budget of this county, of what we can and cannot afford to do, and I think will be a very good addition to our representation on the Mid-America Regional Council. With that, I'd like to make the motion. Let me see, does it have the name filled in already? Yes, it does. To appoint Victor Hilbert to the Mid-America Regional Council Board of Directors. That term would expire in December of 2023. Discussion?
No discussion, thank you.
No, thank you.
Very well. With that, I will close. Please call the roll.
Yes?
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Auditor. That brings us to 2021-336.
Yes, Commissioners, this is the contract for medical examiner services with the county. Again, this is with Frontier Forensic. It is a 5-year agreement with a cap of, I think, of 3% per year, which is the best part of this agreement. $618,000 first year. Again, I think the Sheriff's Department and the Prosecutor's Department are both very pleased with the service. They've been very good to work with, and they continue to want to expand in this area and potentially even purchase their physical presence may move to the county as soon as they're able to locate a space.
Very good. Are there any questions of the counselor on this issue?
No, thank you.
Very well. Is there a motion related to 2021-336?
I'll make a motion to approve 2021-336.
Motion's been made for the approval of 2021-336. Discussion?
No discussion.
Seeing none. Comments from the public? Seeing none. You're recognized to close.
I close?
Please call the roll.
Yes?
Yes.
That brings us to the end of our regular agenda. And I hope the weather is still not completely horrible out there. That brings us to comments on non-agenda items. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on any items not covered under this evening's agenda? Seeing none. Are there any office holders who would like to make comments not on this evening's agenda? Seeing none. Are there any agencies that would like to make any comments not on this evening's agenda? Seeing none. Are there any comments from County Administrator?
No, not tonight, thank you.
Commissioner, may I jump in on some of those comments real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a bit out of the ordinary, but I did feel the need. Obviously, we had a couple things come up tonight that were less smooth than we would prefer. And certainly on behalf of staff, we apologize for that. At a minimum, I think we need to evaluate when single items come on for vote. And at a minimum, I'll commit that we will in the future, and until we have a better process in place, we will certainly make sure that if new items are coming on, that the commission individually are getting specific notice of such items as soon as possible, so that you know that they are in fact coming onto your agenda.
Very well. I appreciate that, and you're right. It didn't run as smoothly as we would hope, but I think we should look upon this as an opportunity to revisit our existing systems and make improvements in how we conduct business. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Thompson.
All I have to say is I think, this may be our last meeting, but it might not be. But for those of you we don't see, we should all have a very happy, safe holiday and eat some cookies. That's all I got.
Commissioner Carpenter.
No comment, thank you.
I would also join Commissioner Thompson, and I think everybody here, in certainly wishing everybody a Merry Christmas and a safe holiday season. Obviously, there may be the opportunity to meet again prior to Christmas. The other thing that I would like to make comment on is there's an issue that is coming forward tomorrow before the Kansas City City Council regarding the redistricting. That meeting takes place tomorrow afternoon at City Hall, and they will vote whether to adopt. There's essentially one map on the table for them to discuss. There is a second map that my understanding will be proposed by Council Member Fowler. I would urge citizens, particularly those of Kansas City, to educate themselves to the degree possible, and to, if you have the opportunity and the inclination, to make sure that you express your thoughts to your elected representatives, particularly those city council members who are either part of representing this area, or certainly those who are serving at large. I think every opportunity a citizen has to express their opinions to their elected representatives is important. The redistricting map will, of course, be in effect for 10 years, and in my opinion, profoundly affect how we go forward as a county and as a Northland region. So I would urge citizens to make their thoughts known to their elected representatives at City Hall. That brings us to approval of minutes of previous sessions. I see none listed. Written reports. There are no written reports. Executive sessions, there are none listed. That brings us to adjournment. Everybody please travel safely as they travel home this evening with the inclement weather. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.